Hello, welcome to the Silver Sirens Virtual Sanctuary and to this wonderful masterclass by Deb Pet-Lewing, which is Traveling Fearlessly. Effortlessly and fearlessly with Deb Pet-Lewing. Over to you, Deb.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much, Faith. So as Faith said, I'm Deb. I'm sitting here on Gumbanya country in Coffs Harbour, beautiful Coffs Harbour. Beautiful day, but cold, just like a lot of the country is at the moment. Um, as we were talking before, Faith called some of us Silver Sirens OGs, from way back in 2018. So I was delighted to go to Faith's first ever Silver Sirens in 2018. And last year we had our first Silver Sirens in Coffs Harbour, and we're having another one in September, which is really, really exciting. And at some stage, actually, I'd love to get around and go to some of the other regional ones. That would be great. So look, what I'm hoping today is just to really have a conversation and share some of my experiences traveling and what works for me and the kinds of travel that works for me and how I keep safe and how I budget, etc. Because I know that many people here will have traveled quite a lot as well. And so I'm going to invite lots of sharing as well of the topics I talk about, and then invite people to sort of share their experiences and knowledge as well, because I think we've got a mixture of people here. And this I've been a sort of a lifelong traveler, really, and it went. I think it. I remember distinctly. My father, my adoptive father that I grew up with, was had a background as a Romani gypsy. That was his heritage. And I think it was in his blood, traveling as a Romani gypsy. And so he constantly, while I was growing up, talked to me about travel and just built in me this wish to travel as soon as I could. And and so I'm just gonna just lost my yeah. So this is kind of from when I was at high school, I remember my first desire to travel. And so actually my first overseas trip ever was when I was 15, and it was going to Fiji on a school trip. And I remember I worked like in a Chinese restaurant and in a fish and chip shop as well to save up the money to get to go on this Fiji school trip. That was my first overseas trip, and it was inspired by my dad talking. My most recent trip has been to Norway, and that was in 2024. And that was actually to trace my roots, my Norwegian roots, that I only found out about in 2022. And that was amazing. And one of my favorite travel memories is I used to work for Save the Children out of New Zealand, and used to get to travel to lots of places in Asia and Africa and etc. And one of the favorite memories is actually a work trip to South Sudan, um, just before it became actually an independent country. And it was post-war, and actually seeing the situation there and seeing we were doing some projects there to support education, and being so inspired by the resilience of the people and how they were building their lives. That was just like an amazing memory for me. Oops. Um, I thought I might start off. Would anyone else like to share something, either their first overseas trip or their most recent trip, or a favorite travel memory? Um, Anyone just unmute yourself and just share something to start off with?
I'll share if you like.
Yeah.
I'm about to, I won't say retrace, but I'm about to do something that I did, and it's 17 years ago. I can't believe it's that long ago. I went traveling on my own post-divorce in 2007 to Italy. I have a girlfriend that's well traveled, and she said, don't go and do one of those Kentucky things where you go to a different country every 2 days. Go and immerse yourself in one country. And of course, Italy was my choice. So when I think about it in those days, no Google Maps, Mobile phone was a bit dodgy, you know, with the SIM card, you had to try and get over there and it'd last you like 10 minutes on the phone. You have to go and get another one, like, you know, completely different world back then. And I drove a little hire Fiat car on my own, on the wrong side of the road, as you do, around Tuscany and all those sort of country back roads, completely getting lost, but enjoying myself immensely. And then life took over. I thought I'd actually do that every 2 or 3 years and go and explore other parts of the world, but life took over. So I'm actually taking off in 8 weeks' time.
Oh,
And I'm going to be spending 3 months overseas, and I'm on my own. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to share and some tips and tricks, because it's been 17 years since I've done that.
fantastic. Yeah, and absolutely, things have changed so much, haven't they? No Google Maps in those days. Thank you, Jalinda. Does someone else just want to share a memory or something that's coming up?
I'll share.
Okay.
First solo trip I did was when I was 18 to 19. It was my first year of speech therapy, and it was a 3 months break in between first year and second year. I won't calculate how many years ago that was. It was a long time ago. And basically, I had planned it all by myself through student travel in those days, saved up from babysitting and doing markets. It didn't take a lot of money in those days. You could go to Indonesia and Southeast Asia and live like a queen on $5 a day. I mean, you know, so I sort of said to my parents, well, goodbye, I'm leaving tomorrow for 3 months. I'll see you in 3 months' time. And they couldn't say anything because it was all fait accompli. That was my first big solo trip, and it left a marked impression on me for the rest of my life. I understood what it was to connect with other people in an exotic and different culture in a language that I didn't speak, but quickly picked up Indonesian's quite easy and basic, and just totally immerse myself in that experience of a Malaysia and Indonesia that was still virgin then, and even Bali and Denpasar. It's nothing like what it is today. There were no Starbucks, no McDonald's, there were no high-rise, nothing. It was the true experience. And it was just something very special, because it's like living a part of history that if you go there now, only a remnant of it exists. And so that I feel very privileged to have experienced that. My most recent trip, I literally got back about 2 weeks ago. I spent 2 months abroad. I went to Dubai, Morocco, Portugal, Malta.
Wow.
Southern Italy and Puglia, up to see my granddaughter in Milan, then to Venice, and caught a boat, a Star Clipper, not those huge humongous cruises, an actual sailing ship.
Wow.
And then we did the
amazing.
Mediterranean, Dubrovnik, Montenegro, and ended up in Greece, and came back from 31, almost 32-degree heat in Greece. Greece, in Glyfada to Sydney. So it's been a bit of a shock, but that was a very big trip. And I think, you know, it's, I did a mix one, some small groups, mostly solo. I tend to travel since my husband passed away. I'm travel solo again, and then met up with friends on the boat. So that's my
wow, that's an amazing trip. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And perhaps for people who haven't been recently or something, if you could book a trip tomorrow, where would you go? I'm interested to hear about what some dreams that people have, what's their bucket list, what their plans are. Does anyone want to share? A couple of people want to share that.
Sri Lanka.
Where?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
Nepal and Bhutan. Still places I haven't been.
Oh, anyone else?
I'd like to go to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never been there, so I'd love to try there.
Yeah, I can highly recommend Japan. I spent a year there teaching English, so go for that. For me, I always want to say France, but then I think I always have in my mind, oh, you shouldn't go back to a place you've been. There's so many other places to go, so there's always the big dilemma about where to go. But I think for me also, it's every time you travel, you feel differently and need something different. So it's not necessarily that I'm kind of going through the list of places. It's, I don't know, case by case scenario. But yeah, usually when that question comes up, I always yell France because I just love that.
That's true. It is a dilemma sometimes. Go back to a place that you love, and you felt comfortable in and you connected with and connect more, or go somewhere different.
Yeah.
There's the need for diversity, but also the need for familiarity and comfort. And yeah. Anyone else want to share one more idea?
I'm going to Ireland, and Ireland is somewhere I've been wanting to go all my life, and I didn't know why until last year when I'm adopted, and I met my sisters, my two younger sisters, and found out my heritage is Irish. So I'm definitely, that's where I'm off to this time. But I'm also going to the southern part of Italy. I did all around Tuscany and the northern part last time. So the southern part of Italy and Sicily, which is another place I wanted to go see. So that's on my bucket list. If I could book something else tomorrow that isn't what I'm going to go and do in 8 weeks' time, I'm looking at doing the UN Women's Walk. That they've got coming up in March, towards the end of March, at the Bay of Fires, Tassie. So
beautiful.
That's next on the list.
So much choice. Yeah, I mean, you're familiar with me. You're like me. I went to Norway to explore my roots because I'm adopted, and going to Ireland. Beautiful. Really lovely. Thank you. So, why travel after 50? And what are the reasons? For me, I'll share mine in a minute. But I suppose, why have you traveled, or why do you want to travel at this phase of life? And do you think these reasons are different from when you were younger? Does anyone like to sort of share a reflection on any of those two questions? And I'll share mine in a moment. I can't see everybody's photos and stuff, so just unmute yourself and speak up as you wish.
I was going to say, I think when I was younger, I guess it's the excitement of it all. And I grew up in South Africa, so it was quite a small world, and it was all about adventuring. And I think now, I think once you know yourself better, you sort of have a more meaningful experience traveling. You kind of get more out of it. So kind of wish I could go back to all those places I went when I was young and do it again, because I'm sure I would do it a little bit differently. But I guess that's just the experience you take over the years.
Absolutely. It was really embarrassing because I told my daughter, her and I went to Edinburgh, say in 2019, I think it was, yeah. And I said to her, I've never been to Edinburgh. No, or something. This will be the first time. And then I told a friend of mine that I was going to Edinburgh. And then the next minute she sends me this photo of her and me in Edinburgh. And I was like, oh, that must have been quite a trip to Edinburgh then, that I didn't remember, because we were living in another part of Scotland and London and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. When you're young and partying in a city, you don't remember it. So it is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to share on those two questions?
Now, Maddie, you're unmuted. Did you want to share?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was one of those people who went to university and then got married and then got a mortgage and then ran a business and all that sort of stuff. We did go overseas for 6 weeks on $10 a day. This is before many of your time. Yeah, it was very rushed, but it was amazing and certainly gave me the thirst to do more. But that wasn't solo. The solo travel that I find really works well for me is I love to walk the Camino trails. So I've walked 5 of them now. The first time I walked with a friend, but the other times I found it was wonderful because if you were solo, you tended to talk to people from all over the world, and you would walk with someone for a week or so, so I really enjoyed that aspect of solo travel on the Camino trails. I go to conferences every 3 years for the Alexander Technique. So I've got one in Dublin in a couple of weeks, and then walking in the southwest. So the walking usually often with a company. But as I said, if I do a Camino, then you can lead yourself. You can completely do that on your own. So, and the other one that I really loved was going to India and working on an eye camp. I thought that was the sort of thing I was going to do when I was retired. And I went to actually meditate, and I said, oh, well, you're a physio, you can help us a lot, on the eye camp. So I kept treating the injured and putting the eye drops in. It was just an extraordinary experience.
Wonderful.
So yes, I've got very fond memories of
Right.
traveling solo.
Yeah, a big diversity of travel.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, these are my top 3 reasons, and yes, they have changed. These are the now reasons. I suppose for me, it's about change and difference and challenge. Being out, I like being out of my comfort zone. Curiosity, and I love food, different cultures. I like history, I like architecture, and I kind of also think like I can like to connect with people. And I think sometimes like connecting with others that we realize we're just all the same in a way, and we're all just trying to do our best and get on in life despite different cultures. Those are kind of my top 3 reasons. Why might you choose not to travel? Some people are saying, I don't want to travel, don't want to travel anymore. Anyone have any thoughts around that? Have you had any discussions with friends about to travel or not, and why not? Or any particular places not to travel? I'm not so much about, I don't know. Yeah.
If we eliminate the money one, that's obviously the reasons people may not travel, but if we can eliminate that one.
Yes, eliminate that one. Yeah.
Yes.
There was one I was discussing the other day with someone, and it wasn't so much what not to travel overall, but I suppose we were discussing, is nowhere sacred now? And, the example we were discussing, the amount of travel that's being done now to Antarctica, for example. And it used to be very, very rare, and there was only expedition ships, etc. But now there seems to be just, multiple cruise ships going to Antarctica. And so we were kind of having a bit of a discussion around would we or not for sort of ethical, environmental feelings and reasons. And I suppose that sometimes, people are thinking of things like that. Okay. Look, I've, traveling a lot, and perhaps having some friends and family that don't travel so much, sometimes get a lot of comments. People sort of have quite a lot of feelings about travel and me traveling, negative comments, or, I'm wondering, do people have some worrying thoughts pop into their heads that perhaps discourage them from travel? I've had comments around too old. Oh, I don't want to travel because I've got no one to travel with. It isn't safe. It's a young person's thing. It's too expensive. Logistics and things like that. What's people's experience of other comments from people, or what even pops into your own head around travel? Would anyone like to share? What have people, perhaps, if people have made negative comments to you, what have you perhaps responded if people have made any of these comments?
Certainly had some of. Oh, you go, Jalinda. You go.
Sorry. The points you've made there, and I know are a real thing for some people, are not an issue for me, because I flip the too old the other way around. I'm 63. If I don't do it now, I don't want to be too old to travel. So my 60s is all about travel, because I don't want to leave it until it's too late, because it's not so much old, it's capability or you know, knees, hips, all that kind of thing. So I want to still be able to travel in an active way, not being pushed around in a wheelchair. So therefore I need to travel, you know, in my 60s and possibly, you know, 70s, but not leave it too long. And I don't know what it is, but sometimes because of all those things, I typed it in the chat, but because of all those things that I think, was it Maddie or somebody else sort of mentioned before, you know, married, young, children, mortgage, you know, kids, career, you know, the whole thing means that very suddenly we get over 50 and suddenly we've got all these things we have always wanted to do and didn't get to do. So I think, yeah, that too old, we've got to flip it the other way. Do it before you're too old.
Yes.
Too expensive is the one that came up for me just then when you asked about what other people are saying. I'm going on my own because my partner does not want, he cannot comprehend the fact that it might cost 30,000 to do, you know, 3 months overseas, or 25,000, or depending on what trips you're doing. Yes, you can do it a bit cheaper. But these days, like you were talking about before, there's no such thing as $10 a day. You know, like it's expensive to travel, even when you go on off peak like I am. So for a lot of people, that's just, you know, to blow that kind of money in one trip is just, you know, not in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
For me, my children don't need my super. They've got more money than me now. So I'm not leaving any inheritance.
Good. Any other comments on things people have said to you, negativity that things people have said to you, or doubts that pop into your own head?
I think we were speaking before we jumped on about my brother-in-law, who luckily he did do quite a bit of travel before he retired, but he set up his life to retire early, set everything up, and then he got a stroke and now he can't travel in the same way. You know, so yeah, a little bit like Jalinda. For me, it's like do it right when you can. And I think we're really lucky in our 60s. We're still very fit and very mobile. Most of us are going to be good in our 70s as well, but beyond that, we don't know. So I think the thing about jumping on it now, if we can, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Some people ask, don't you get lonely or aren't you afraid traveling alone? But I think that when you do travel alone, you're much more approachable than, you know, a cluster of women who are a unit on their own already are less likely to be approached. Like, for example, in Puglia, I tried to get on with a group because there are pros and cons to everything. And I tried to get onto a small group. It just didn't work out. And I ended up having a driver and then local guides in each of the places. And one of the guides in Tranny, we just hit it off from just the first word. And she basically took me home to meet her family. And she told me, I thought maybe she does that with everyone, but she said, I really don't usually do this. I've only done it once before with a philosophy professor, but that was after 3 days. But with me, she just wanted to take me home to meet her family, which is a real privilege because you get to see people living their life in that town, not just the tourist sites or the historical or architectural aspects.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and I don't think if I was with a friend or a group of people that would have ever happened.
Yeah.
And actually, interestingly enough, even though she's a local guide and very steeped in the knowledge of the history of the city and so forth and the area, most of her family hadn't actually traveled a lot. So they were absolutely thrilled to be regaled with all my stories of traveling through Alaska in the middle of winter, you know, when it was minus 5. And they were like, you know, like, and they didn't speak a lot of English, and my Italian is poco, you know, but it was just one of those magical experiences where I feel like laughing when people say, aren't you afraid? Isn't it boring? And isn't it lonely? And it's like, I'm with a family who are feeding me and, you know, looking after me and treating me like their daughter on day one. And these marvelous things happen when you travel alone with a certain open heart, you know, you have to have an attitude to sort of being open to that kind of experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Sorry, I was just going to throw in, because I know that the cost thing came up, and I think in recent years, this has been a big thing, traveling solo and the solo supplement that you have to pay. And I think there's a lot of companies now that are having very low single supplements, or they have like a certain number of positions that don't have the single supplement. And so I think it's worth sort of seeking that out if you,
Absolutely.
you
They're
know, worried
starting to
about
know.
cost.
They're starting to realize there's a big market there.
Yeah.
This is headed here. What kind of traveler are you? For me, that's kind of like super important because I'm a big solo traveler who doesn't like things tightly organized. Other people are different, because if the travel style doesn't suit me, then I actually might be not enjoy it at all. It really makes a huge difference and I've worked that out over the years, what kind of traveler I am. And I think it's quite important for people to actually sort of work that out and really think that through before they decide, well, I'm going to go on a cruise, or I'm going to go on a bus tour, or no, I'm going to go solo, or no, I'm going to go on a woman's tour, or something like that, and really work out, what kind of schedules you like. Do you like downtime? Do you like exploring in depth, or do you like to see as many places as possible, et cetera, et cetera. To me, this can sort of working that out and working out what I like and don't like, and would I like this kind of trip or not, really, really important.
I always just travel with carry-on. I never check luggage. And I find that really simplifies movement and just, getting around. And I mean, I actually love the flying as well. I know a lot of people dread it, but from the moment I get to the airport, I think I'm on holidays. And
yes, really.
I absolutely love the flying, the taking off, and
Beautiful.
I know it's weird, but I do. But yeah, to me, carry on has really made a big difference to what kind of traveller I am. I've given up all the, let's colour coordinate in, bone and navy and black and have everything. I just have straight things now that just work and keep it really simple, and it makes it a lot easier getting around, getting on and off trains and, just moving. I don't depend on anyone to have to lift something for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I see on a lot of Facebook groups about travel and stuff, there's a lot of talk about, carry on only and what bag and la, 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 la. I actually took a friend to the airport this afternoon, and she's off on an Alaskan cruise. And I could hardly pick her bag up. And I was like, oh, okay, this is certainly not light travel. She said, oh, I think I'll get to Sydney and I'll have to repack it. But it was 25 kilos. And you're not going to be but she's going on a cruise, and a cruise is you just get there, you unpack in your cabin. It's not jumping on and off trains in Europe. But she was like, oh. So yeah, travel light. I think it's amazing because nowadays we have just this huge treasure chest of travel options, so many different, things to choose from. There's special interest travel, and solo travel, and small group travel, and volunteer travel, and, work away. I've done that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So, I mean, it's amazing. The marketplace is catering for more and more diversity in travel, which I love. Has anyone been on a special interest trip, like focused on cooking or history, architecture, or art or anything? If anyone has, would you like to share?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a foodie, so I do a lot of just food-based tours, which is kind of twofold because I guess you get a little bit more food included in what you're paying for. But for me, the food is all about really understanding the culture more. I think like food is so important in how people live, how they shop, how they see the world, how they celebrate. It's, it's sort of indicative of so many things about the culture. So for me, I've always loved going on food tours, or even if I'm just traveling on my own, I try and do a little day food, tour, market tour, cooking class, something like that. Yeah.
It's amazing the options nowadays. Like, for instance, you can just look online and Airbnb experiences have little food tours, or tours with locals, or it's amazing the choice you have to be able to do these little experiences.
Yeah.
Anyone been on something different than food?
I've been on a couple of, it's only over to Bali, but I've been on a couple of full immersion, meditation, women's retreats.
Yes. Yeah.
Really enjoy that. Just, no mobile phones. Yoga, meditation, lots of massage, just self-love, self-restoration. It's beautiful. And I've done it 3 years in a row now in May.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, retreats are really popular.
Mm.
We were talking about solo travel before, and quite a few people have loved solo travel and have traveled solo. It's one of my preferred ways to travel as well. Actually, I was a bit afraid. Well, last year I was doing a big trip in Europe, and then I also went to Norway, and a friend from here, Australia, asked if she could meet me in Norway because she'd always wanted to go, and there was some family background there too. But I was like really hesitant to say yes because I love solo travel so much. But I did know her really well, and I thought, and so I said yes, and she came. But I did say to her, well, as long as like I've kind of got a plan, and are you okay to go along with the plan? And, we don't have to be together 24/7, or, we talked about that a bit, and she came and it was absolutely fine. And, she was great, but I was really afraid of traveling with someone because I love solo travel so much. And I think there are great advantages and disadvantages of it, as some people have mentioned. Some people share what they do, and you meet people, you connect, you perhaps meet people and connect with people you wouldn't normally if you're with someone or with a group. Does anyone want to share their experience, or does anyone want to talk about you'd love to, but you've got hesitations? Just any comment about solo travel?
Put a hand up.
Yes, Maddie.
Go, Maddie.
Yes. So actually, I was warned in all the reading that I did before I did my second Camino, and somebody in our walking group heard where I was going, and this was a French one, and she was going to come for 10 days. But, her idea of what a Camino was very, because I'd already walked one, was very different. And while I managed the 10 days, I was very relieved. And it was interesting. She actually spoke fluent French, which meant I was left out of conversations quite a bit. That was one thing. The other thing is, if she'd met someone the day before, she wanted to meet them for coffee in the morning after breakfast, whereas I wanted to get the walking going because I don't like walking in the dark at night. So there were quite a lot of differences. And then when I went back to read some of the guidelines, they said, be careful who you have walking with you because you may not be compatible. I mean, it depends on the intensity of it, of course. And, we parted after the 10 days, and it was very interesting. I'll just be quick with this, was that after she went, I'd done French at high school. And so I started to use my high school French, and I realized that if I had stayed there for a couple more months, my French would have come back. I was starting to find words for things. So, it was of much more benefit to me actually not to have someone with me who was speaking fluent French.
Yes. Yeah. So that's right. Compatibility.
Yes.
And travel often makes you want to travel solo. Anyone?
Your expectations can be different,
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Maddie. Anyone else want to share a thought on solo travel?
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to Bali just a few months ago for my 60th with my childhood best friend, and I went with her, and we travel really well together. But I went to pretty much the same thing a few years before my own, and I was just thinking how many people I made, so many new friends on that solo one, because you just get in our bubbles. Even though we kind of say hi to people, we were just stuck in our little bubbles. And I think, God, yeah, there was so much I missed out on because I wasn't so open. And like, we all know here, everyone who travels. For me, when people talk about safety, I always feel much more alert when I'm traveling alone too, because I know I'm going to be traveling alone. I know I have to make all the decisions. I know I've got to keep my eyes open. And a little bit like Anne, I love that freedom when you're traveling by yourself and you just get to the airport and it's like nobody can contact me. Nobody. It's like there's this beautiful bubble that you're surrounded in that all you got to think about is yourself and how you feel and what you want to do. I love that feeling.
Yes, I have very sharp observation powers when I'm on my own. Just not necessarily even about safety, but just observing things what are going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's nice to be solo on a group sometimes, so not with a friend on a group, but on your own on a group, because it's a lot easier to make friends with people and spend a bit of time with them, but you're not sort of obliged to spend the whole day. If it's not going that well, you're like, I'm just going to go over here. So it's kind of, you have the advantages of the company and the like-minded people, but you can always step away from it.
That's right. Yeah.
Kind of had enough.
And this is, I mean, the next one is, the women only small travel group, which is one big option that's really growing in popularity now. And there's lots of small groups, 10, 12 people for women only and women over 50, particularly often. And, I just listed Patch and Intrepid and Women Only and Sisterhood, Women's Travel, etc. There's a lot, and it's really, really growing, and they are reducing the single supplement issues in that as well. Has anyone taken a women's only small group?
I have.
Yeah.
Well, I've hosted a retreat in Africa with just a small group of women in 2019, and we're doing another one for Silver Sirens next year. So I've done that.
Yeah, yeah. I sort of had my name down for next year to do a patch one to Iran, but that's not happening now. That's on hold. So patch. To me, sometimes they appeal because if I could go to somewhere that I really difficult to go on your own, and that you really do need the logistics and the organisation of a company to support you.
Is that what patch means?
Patch, I don't know what patch means actually. Patch is the name of the travel company. It's an Australian-based one, and for women over 50, and they have some really interesting trips. And I think kind of adventure things that are more difficult to logistically do yourself. And so I'm going to start exploring myself some of these kind of more small group women over 50 ones that are hard to do on my own. It's growing popularity, this choice.
Yeah. In relation to that one, I looked at the Sisterhood and another one for the island trip, the island part of my trip.
Okay.
They had some available. Can I just say that I liked what you said earlier about really making sure when you look at the itinerary that the stuff that's actually in the itinerary is stuff that floats your boat that you're going to enjoy doing. There was way too much in the women's only stuff around shopping time and stuff that I just wasn't interested in.
Right. Yes.
Not enough adventure. And also, I would say 50% again in price.
Okay. Yes, true. It's a consideration, isn't it? Yeah.
It seemed to be more expensive to do it that way. Obviously, the people running it are making money out of it as well, but they're organising it all, so you're paying for the fact that they're organising it all.
Yeah.
So,
true. That's right. There's this one, I don't know if I've done this. I don't know if anyone else has done it. Workaway. I went through the website called Workaway, and I did two things in 2019 in Europe. I did a month in Italy with a family, supporting them with their 9-year-old daughter to learn English. And then I did a month in Portugal looking after a 95-year-old lady and cooking her meals. It was a really unique experience. You do 25 hours or 20 to 25 hours work a week in return for accommodation and food, and then you have a couple of days off. So that's something really different. There's thousands and thousands of opportunities all around the world. Has anyone done Workaway? Workaway or Woofers or World Packers, those are some of the websites. Workaway is very diverse. Woofing tends to be more like farms or farming, but Workaway could be absolutely anything. It was interesting. I really enjoyed the experience, but what I learned is you've got to be really careful again, looking at what's required of you. Do you have a common understanding about when you're going to work, the hours, the expectations, and when your days off are and stuff like that. But it was a really good experience. And my daughter, who's currently overseas, has done 2 of these, one in Nicaragua and one in Costa Rica. Good option. And it reduces cost, and you get to stay in a place for a month, and you then get to know it more. So I was able to travel on the weekends in Portugal and in Italy and see some things.
There's also the house sitting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Yes.
there's house sitting.
I've done that in the UK.
Yeah, house
I
sitting.
could write a book on that. Yeah.
Yes. I have, yeah. Another one, is volunteer travel. And there's lots of, there's the more the volunteer tourism, and then there's the volunteer travel, and there's lots of organizations that will help you. But I feel you need to do a lot of research to make sure it's ethical and authentic. This is something I feel quite passionate about as far as ethical and authentic. And I quickly, I won't go through them now because we don't really have a lot of time, but, maybe if people get the slides, and just for your own interest, if you're thinking about volunteering or volunteer travel, I've written down some of the things that I would be really examining to make sure that the organization or the company that was offering it, I'd do some research. I'd make sure there's support there. I'd make sure that there's transparency where any money I pay is going. I'd make sure that it's community-led initiatives, and I'd make sure that I'm not doing work that the community could actually do themselves, etc. So I think there's quite a lot to examine around volunteer travel. But it is an interesting, and there's some really good ones out there, but there are some ones who are just trying to make money. Has anyone done that?
No, I was reading about one the other day. So I spent a year in Japan teaching English, and I have always wanted to go to South Korea, and I saw there was a volunteer program where you could do sort of short-term teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to have the luxury of having a whole year again, but I thought that was quite interesting. And you sort of stayed in a temple, which was, an experience on its own. And then you could be, I think 2 weeks was the minimum, which is really short. But I thought that was an interesting way to use what I'd done before and be volunteering. Yeah. But yeah, as you say, I think you do need to look into the nitty-gritty of what the actual work involves as well, seeing as you're essentially paying them rather than the other way around.
Yeah, that's right. But it's another option of all the different options. Look, I think another thing is we've just got so many options nowadays as to where we stay and how we stay and what we like, and different price options and everything like that. I stay in a lot of hosted Airbnbs. So, someone's home and I'm sharing someone's home, and it's often a woman actually. I stay with an older woman, and it's very budget friendly, and I really love it because she's got local knowledge, and but yes, you have less privacy, but perhaps the locations aren't so central, but I find it a really connecting and budget friendly way to go. That's one of my favorites, is hosted Airbnb. Of course, there's, apartment whole Airbnbs are great for cooking yourself, but, and full facilities. But, people are having trouble with inconsistent standards. You arrive and it's not what you think. A location might be a bit out of it, but it's good if there are a couple of you. There's a lot of talk sometimes on these Facebook groups now about people are preferring hotels to Airbnbs because there's consistency of standards and it's in a better location and they feel safer, for example. And then there's still a lot of women over 50 staying in hostels for the experience, for the connection, and things like private rooms, etc. People got any comments about what they love and what they've experienced, what they, have found good or not so good?
Jalinda just said about the hosted Airbnb, and I feel the same. I've never done the hosted Airbnb. What a great idea.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love it.
looking at that because some of the Airbnbs now are well and truly the same price as staying in a hotel resort, per night, particularly when I'm talking Italy, southern Italy. And I'm not going in the high season, but it's hard to get anything for under $250, $300 a night. It's
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Yep.
So
Well,
I'm
I
just,
do it here in my home. I'm a
yeah,
host, and they
yeah.
have one of my rooms and bathroom. So
Yeah, we've got friends in our complex that we're in here that do that. They have one room that they rent out to Airbnb. So I'd consider that, especially if it's like an older lady, it's her home, and I'm just looking for a nice location and nice and quiet where I can do some writing. I'm not going to be out, touristing around every day. So yeah, it would be good. I've just started looking at that. I can see the difference on Airbnb and the difference in price.
yes, yeah. You just sort of search.
$70 a night.
You just search shared home or something like that to find it. It's I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not a hostel person.
No.
I'm more of a hosted Airbnb person. But I have friends who still love to stay in hostels. But
I get what you said also about hotels in Ireland and in London. You can get reasonably priced hotels that are like right nice and central and easy near train stations and stuff like that. Sometimes that's better than being too far out.
Yeah, and a lot of the talk on the Facebook travel groups is that people are finding Airbnbs inconsistent.
Yes.
Like you'll arrive and they're filthy, they're dirty, they're not what they were advertised, they're
Yeah.
in a bad neighborhood or something, and they don't feel safe. Whereas people are feeling safer, and it can be guaranteed more consistency in a hotel. So there's sort of discussions about that as well.
So we've got 10 more minutes to go, Deb.
Yes, yeah. I'm kind of going to try and speed up a bit. Thank you. Look, it's travel in the age of technology. We were talking about travel when we were young and there was no Google Maps, etc., etc. I mean, this is like in my most recent sort of trip all around Europe last year, was all about the apps, So absolutely, I planned before I went to Norway, for example, where I did a lot of travel on trains and buses. And so what app do I need? There were no bus tickets at all in the metro area, no bus tickets anywhere. So you always had to have an app to pay for your bus ticket. You needed an app for absolutely, an app to go to the laundrette to do your laundry. There was nothing. So it was app. So really research what all the apps that you need in that country and in that area, and sort of download them and get them ready when you're sort of on your way there or still at home if possible. I mean, I think the latest thing is eSIMs. We don't even buy SIMs anymore. We just have an eSIM. One of the disadvantages people were finding with eSIMs, though, is that often they don't include voice calls to local numbers. So if you can't find your hotel or your Airbnb and you've got an eSIM, you can't really make a local call, but you can use WhatsApp and things like that. So yeah, it was apps is kind of being comfortable with apps and all that, I think is really, really important. And also, all the sort of the ways, you've got your money on a Wise card and it's on your app on your phone, and it's amazing, because you can just, transfer from your home bank to your Wise card or whatever travel card you're using, and it's just instantaneous. So it's kind of over the last couple of years, I've got a lot more, confident with technology and actually, being able to have all these apps on my phone and use them as I'm traveling, and it's super useful. I mean, people have different ideas about cash and cards, and I mean, what I do is I have, my travel cards. I have a couple of travel cards, a spare one and one that I use. I have them on my phone. I have hard copies, and I always carry a little bit of cash, just for emergencies. Even often whatever country I'm in, I'll get some cash out for emergencies, or actually, I'll have a $50 or $100 US note that I always carry with me just in case of emergencies. And actually, years and years ago in Laos, that money really, really almost saved who was then my husband's life, because he got a bad appendicitis and had to be taken on a ferry across a river to a hospital. And the only reason that the ferry would take him was because we had $100 US in our pockets and were able to pay them to take him to the hospital. So, you know, just I've always kept something like that in case of emergencies. Yeah, so I suppose that point of that one is just, you know, apps. Again, your apps for your accommodation, so you'll always be able to check your accommodation on the go. You can book at the last minute if something goes wrong or something changes. You can change your bus tickets, train tickets. You can get them at the last moment if things are cancelled. So you can have photos of your documents on your phone. You can have apps to keep all your tickets together. And so really for me, it's just about really getting up to date with all these apps and using them really well. I'm going a bit faster now because we're going to run out of time. You know, budget. We were talking about budget tips. Again, you know, one of the ways I budget is the hosted Airbnb, as we were talking about. I don't know how many people have heard of Host a Sister. It's a Facebook group all around the world for women that belong to this Host a Sister thing. And you can put up a little post and you can say, hey, I'm looking for a 1 or 2 night stay in Prague or in Paris. Is anybody belong to Host a Sister? Is anyone there able to host me? Or even, I want to meet up for lunch. Is anyone, I'm in, you know, Paris, or does anyone want to meet up for lunch from Host a Sister? And somebody will meet up for lunch. So you can have a bit of a social connection, or if accommodation falls through or you're unexpectedly staying somewhere, you can get hold of Host a Sister. And my daughter, who's currently traveling, has used Host a Sister quite a lot. She used it in India for staying at some places, and she also has met people for lunches and just social things as well. Spending tracker apps, aware of what you're spending. There's apps where if you're traveling with a friend, it'll automatically split and show how much, you know, you put an amount in and it'll show how much you each owe and it'll start to track it. So again, just apps. Yeah, the split payments app. The budgeting, I think people talked about, you know, people have been on food tours, you can get free walking tours. Those are sort of ways that I kind of try and budget as well. And we've already talked about the sort of house sitting or work away, as well as budgeting. I found it when I was in London, traveling off peak on the public transport and longer distance trains was amazing, worked really well. Cooking for ourselves, always asking locals, not asking the hotel, but asking local people, asking taxi drivers where to eat. I've had some of my best meals by recommendations from taxi drivers. And I save on travel insurance by really either just trying to find only health cover, you know, hospitals and all of that important health cover, or I really try to minimize all the other cover, because I don't really take much with me, because because you find it, if you do these compare things, it's really quite a lot of money that you're spending on, you know, your luggage or this or that. So I really try to cut down by looking for ones that offer mostly just health cover. Okay, feeling like these are some of my tips for feeling safe and connected. When I'm really arriving late at night somewhere, sometimes I'll spend a little bit more money to stay somewhere that's super close to the station, like across the road, or that I can take a short taxi ride to. You know, sometimes late at night, I don't want to be walking and trying to find my hotel and looking around and looking like a tourist, etc. So, you know, I think about that. What time am I arriving? I try to not arrive at night, but if I'm arriving at night, I really think about where I'm staying. If I'm choosing an Airbnb or something, I actually look on Google Maps and Google Street View. Is it down a dark alleyway? Do I want to actually walk down that alleyway or not? Shall I choose somewhere else? And in fact, once I just decided not to stay somewhere because I turned up and it was down a dark alleyway and I really felt uncomfortable. So I actually didn't stay there. So now I kind of try and check that out. As I said, I like hosted Airbnb because I can ask for safety tips. I like to link to Host a Sister because we can get local advice from local women. I check out Meetup or Facebook groups for opportunities to join people who are either traveling or expat locals. My daughter's been doing that too and met quite a few expat locals just for connection because she's traveling on her own and sometimes feels a bit isolated. And they can give you safety tips too. Again, I think this is common sense. These are kind of the excuses. If someone starts to show a lot of interest and say, well, where are you staying and who you're traveling with, etc., I just make up a little story. So make sure I know the name of a central hotel and the friend or partner. And then I try not to dress like a typical tourist. I try to be a bit smarter, because I think tourists, when they're very typically dressed like a tourist, especially American tourists, you stand out like a sore thumb. So I've always kind of observed a little bit, what are women my age, how are they, local women, how are they casually dressed? What are they wearing? And maybe I'll just try to be a little bit smarter than a typical traveler, so that I kind of blend in and I don't stand out as a traveler so much. Phones are a big thing now. Phones are snatched off the streets all the time in London and Barcelona, etc. I try and really plan and not walk around holding my phone trying to look like where I'm going, both so I don't look like a tourist so much, and so that the phone's not at risk. I use my earbuds. I don't carry my phone. I put it in my pocket, etc. So just little tips to keep safe. Does anyone want to share a tip that they've used to keep safe on their travels? So, I mean, you've probably all got Find My Friend, or this has been amazing when my daughter's been in Peru, right, where she is now. I use Find My Phone every day, Find My Friend on my phone so that I know where she is. But really, basically, I'm a very unparanoid person around. I find 99% of people are just trying their best day by day to get through life. And so I'm not over paranoid about safety. I just have a few tips that I just shared there. Right, how we're there. Just about out of time. Do people just look, last questions, comments?
I saw that Jalinda wanted to add something very quickly. Do you want to just
Linda.
jump in, Jalinda? No, that's okay. It was Jalinda.
Oh, Jalinda. Sorry, Jalinda.
No, it was just when you ask about safety tips, probably my main one is, not carrying a shoulder bag or anything, but wearing one like around your hip or your over the shoulder one that sits under here now. I've got one of those new foldy ones that they talk about that you can't cut off. Well, they can't come along and cut the straps on you, and they've got locks and stuff on. So just that kind of stuff, just being mindful of the phone being in there and not out in your hand. Yeah. I've also recently bought a new watch so that it speaks to my phone and stuff too. So
any
amazing
comments? Yes. So I can't see people's hands. I can't see everybody. Sorry. Maddie.
So Maddie,
Oh, yes. Quite some time ago, one of my clients showed me, and I ordered it online, and it was one of those sort of bum bags that you couldn't slash through. And when you're doing the Camino, they're excellent because you could padlock it, and you didn't even need to take it wherever you went. But I found it wonderful to wear. What I loved about it is there was no question as to where my passport and my money was.
Yep,
It was
always here.
always in that. I never had that thing of freaking out in the morning, where's my such and such? And I've used one ever since. And yes, you can get them online now. They're different colors and what have you. So but I found them excellent.
So Faith, you send this to people that can look back at the things I had to go through
absolutely
quite quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
so
I think it's a marvelous time for us to, it's a marvelous time at this age and in this day and age where, we can also find out there's so many choices and so much information online. And I think those certainly, there's so many aspects of travel that are easier than when I was 20.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So any last words? I'm just going to stop your slide for a moment. Deb, so I can see everyone. Should we just stop your sharing,
yeah,
or
yeah.
do you,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
we can include the slides. Are you okay with us sharing the slides? I think you
Yes,
said
yes.
that already. Yeah, great. Okay, fantastic. So if you just stop sharing, and then we'll get perfect, and I can see everyone now. Okay, so anyone want any last minute words or last minute questions for Deb? That was great, Deb. There's lots of really good stuff in there. Really, really good stuff. Thank you. Everyone okay? No last minute questions? So next week, just continue the conversations on travel. We've got Helena, who's just here. Helena's just come through a really big trip. We're doing Thriving Through Midlife. So we've got 2 experts who have their own agencies. We've got Sisterhood Women's Travel. Someone mentioned Sisterhood. She's on our panel. And we've got another lady who has a travel company called Wing Lux, and she does travel just for women. So we're doing a panel of 3 in Thriving Through Midlife next Thursday at 6:30. So especially you, Jalinda, because you're traveling, come along to that one and we can hear more of Helena's really amazing adventures. Okay, lovely to see you all. Lovely to see you
Thank
all
you,
live.
everyone. Thanks for
And
sharing your
Deb,
stories and things, and happy traveling.